Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and I'm, as always, joined by Mike Smith, award-winning director Brian Redondo, and Savon Jones, aka Captain Vani. This is episode 18, and on today's show, we get to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and some of us have watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, aka the Snyder Cut. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund. I mean, you already look professional wearing the Ray-Bans.
Yeah, I'm the talent, so I have to wear sunglasses.
You've got Ray-Bans and a hoodie, and I've just got like a do-rag and a tee. We're both opposite spectrums.
Me and Savon are like essentially right now we're like Linkin Park and Jay-Z in that collab. Like that's,
right?
That's
this is some numb encore shit.
Yeah.
Not a bad collaboration as far as clashing or combining different genres go, mashing them up.
I got my mom to listen to that shit.
Well, R.I.P. Chester. But speaking of mashups, ooh, did my voice pop right there? I didn't get that lemon this morning. But speaking of mashups, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier first episode dropped this week on the famed Disney Plus subscription service. Spoiler alerts are going to just be all over the place in this one. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to get spoiled, don't listen to this segment, guys. So for everybody here, let's just go real quick. No explanation right now. Would you recommend that people watch it? Savon, yes or no?
Yes.
Mike?
I think if you're not watching it, you're messing up.
Whoo, Brian.
Easy recommend.
All right, so favorite
Which I'm
parts
surprised
of
about Brian
the
there,
show.
so I'm excited to hear more.
All right, so favorite parts of the show. Brian, actually,
I have
just
more
start us off
surprises
then.
for you, though.
Oh
Uh-oh.
my god.
Uh-oh.
Best part of my week.
Hopefully they're verbal and not visual surprises.
Tubin.
Jesus Christ. So like for me, like that intro scene was completely indistinguishable. So the intro scene is like a giant choreographed fight in the air, which is obviously like his whole thing, and that was indistinguishable from a Marvel movie. Like there is just clearly no budgetary difference with like this show. They're going all in clearly on like the combat, because everything else outside of that is kind of just like interior and then like, you know, dialogue. But that was so cool. That's my favorite part of it. But then also like they really and I texted Savon this almost like immediately, like essentially Captain America right now is a black man from New Orleans, which is just like the coolest thing in the world. And like he's from
Or is he,
here
Mike?
Captain Von?
not quite yet. Yeah, now
is he just a squishy, punchable white guy right now?
I recognize that actor. I don't know where I recognize him from, but
Is that the guy from Dollhouse?
he's in a lot of stuff. But like
We're just gonna let him get away with it.
they really like went in on the
No
New
one saw that
Orleans
show.
with his family, and it was like really cool. It clearly wasn't shot in New Orleans because John Bell Edwards like yeeted away those tax credits for production. So
At the end
it's
of the credits, they say it was filmed in a bunch of filming in Atlanta. Yeah, Georgia.
which is
It's
like not
always Georgia.
surprising, but like I thought like and like the whole like shrimp boat thing, like I'm not sure if that was supposed to be like a Forrest Gump kind of like nod or something like that, but I thought like the whole vibe of the episode, like with the three main things they did, like the fight, like Bucky's kind of journey, and then the Falcon's kind of like home and family, like that, they nailed all three of those. So I was just so blown away by what they were able to do in one episode.
Can we just talk about that opening set piece for a second? Like,
Crazy. It
How-
was so good.
yeah, how over the top are these things going to be for TV shows? Like we talked about how The Mandalorian had incredible set pieces, huge effects laden, CGI laden, big monster battles, and then to start off the Falcon and the Winter Soldier with an in the air combat sequence that probably lasted like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was long too.
With I want to say maybe five stuntmen skydiving, and I'm pretty sure they actually did skydive because they had the sort of like action camera, the GoPro
helmet
camera vibe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think seemed pretty legit. And then of course you got Falcon soaring through. That's probably CGI. I mean that thing is
Probably.
No, they had real wings. Anthony Mackie was in that joint with
you
some
never
real
know with
wings.
their budget. You never know with their budget. They
you know
created
what's also
jetpack
crazy
technology.
About that? Is he just kills people. Like that character straight up
kills
just kills
people.
people. Like he would just like rip them out the helicopter and drop
Yep.
them, which I thought
Yep.
was like also like a really ambitious.
Or blew up the helicopters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, multiple helicopter explosions.
Yeah, which was just a weird way to like start that show for a Disney show. Go ahead, Simon.
One note though is that at first he tried not to kill people. I think I don't know if you picked that up. At first, he definitely was trying to incapacitate, and as the fight picked up, because at one point when they were like in there, he punched the guy's thing to make the parachute come out. So it's like, all right, cool.
I didn't even notice that.
He's not coming for,
Yeah.
and he was trying to just beat people up in the plane. He wasn't trying to shoot them necessarily. So I thought it was a nice nod that like he's not immediately coming for blood, but if he needs to defend himself with lethal force, let's get it. But like I agree, like it was a nice blend of camp, but still action, but still like, oh, Falcon's like legit. He's more than just a jetpack. He has, it was a good sequence of showcase for what his actual skills are.
I feel
He's been
like
practicing.
it like tonally, like that's a good point. Like a mix between like camp and like brutal, which that's kind of been like the Captain America tone. Like at least with like Winter Soldier and like Civil War, like in those movies, I feel like that's like exactly how you'd sum up the tone. Like obviously he's kind of campy, but then like when push comes to shove, like he can be kind of brutal and the people around him can be brutal. And I feel like that was a really like it's implicit in the show, but it does really like with the music and everything, it feels like they're kind of carrying on like Captain America, even in like the meta way. So like tonally in the beginning, I would like you're immediately kind of like brought into like exactly how you should kind of feel, and like because like they've built up that character so much and now he's gone, it like really kind of like generates emotions in people if you're a big fan, especially. And we can talk about the end, but like when I was reading like on the internet, like the biggest response was like that ending made me way more mad than I was expecting. Like people like really felt some type of way about another guy having the shield.
I mean, and as they should. That was really the point. I want to talk about two things with this first episode. The first is how race weaves in and out of the narrative and like is part of the DNA of the show. And then the second thing I want to talk about is Bucky and Sam a little bit, but Bucky especially, how he is throughout this series. He's going to be set up as both a victim and a perpetrator, right? So he's got this duality of, and it's what's making him a phenomenal character. Like honestly, like I found his scenes way more compelling because of that sort of struggle and pain that he's having to deal with. It feels to me right now that the Falcon is a little bit more one note as a character, but man, like he's dating, right? Or he's trying to date, but he doesn't feel worthy of being loved. This is talking about Bucky. He cares for Mr. Nakajima and he wants to make amends, but he's holding in a terrible, like inevitable secret that it's going to hurt Mr. Nakajima right to the core, and he knows that, like, but the longer he waits, the worse it becomes.
That hit really hard. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm dumb. I didn't realize, and then I loved how they showed that beginning, and then I didn't realize that guy was the son, and then when that hit, like, that was like that was a whole nother kind of like note I feel like the episode hit, which was really cool.
I just thought that was like so good. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about that, like Bucky and Sam's characterization so far, and then also about how race is being weaved into it. Savon, you want to take either one of those threads?
Yeah. So the bit with Bucky, I agree. Like one of my biggest concerns or questions I had about this show was how are you going to give these two characters agency when all of their plots before revolved around whatever Steve Rogers was doing. And I think they've done a great job with that. I guess starting with Bucky, the victim perpetrator piece, completely agree. I love it. They're really tackling, like, it was really stood out to me when he said the only piece he's had really since the war has been Wakanda.
That was
This,
such a cool throwaway line. Like, to not
Yeah.
really like harp on that. It was so cool, man.
yeah, and that was like, that's heavy, man. Dudes, they're doing a great job of just showing that, hey, beyond like literally, really all of the stuff that's destroying Bucky really has nothing to do with Captain America. So you can do a really good job. They're doing a great job of just showing, like, yo, Steve being gone sucks, but like Bucky's problems have existed with or without Steve. Like, he was the Winter Soldier for when he was under ice for eons. So how they're gonna do that story and show him trying to make friends and show that he's really depressed and withdrawn, like, I'm curious to see, it's going to be interesting because the trailers show him sometimes just, wisecracking, but
Yeah.
they're like, yo, this man's in a bad place.
That was also a takeaway, was that what they kind of like set up in the trailer was not the dynamic they created in the episode, specifically when the therapist, and that scene was also amazing, and we can talk more about the acting, and
So
I'm sure
good.
Brian will talk about that. Him saying that Bucky's been ignoring Sam's texts was the opposite of the way I thought the dynamic was going to go in this show. So like that was like another, and I guess that's also really good writing, like just to kind of like one line can like kind of flesh out their relationship is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw one of the replies I saw like kind of talking about like Bucky's line and how like a lot of this is like his own struggles, and it was a really funny. It was like one of the top comments on like the post episode thread on Reddit. It was like, oh, so I see the real villain of Phase 4 is trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what these shows are going to explore, huh?
Yeah, but like, you have to, I mean, that's the call. Like, otherwise, I think it becomes shallow storytelling and it takes away the stakes of the actual events that preceded it. It's a good way of hammering it home. Thanos lost, but like, okay, people still effed up down the line. But
Yeah, that
and it
blip
kinda-
has ramifications.
facts. But and then to think about the race element, Mike, last episode you talked a little bit about, is the mouse gonna like whitewash it, and I was confident that they wouldn't, and I'm glad that that seems to be that they're leaning all in on it, because historically with most shows, IPs, whatever, when you introduce someone who's maybe a black equivalent of a character, there's all, or not even black, a non-white version of a character, there's usually a lot of pushback or controversy. And they're just leaning all in real world of what it'll look like. I'm excited.
What I was surprised was like I was imagining. Well, I don't know the comic arc, but I'm imagining there's a lot of public vitriol towards him as Black Captain America. For them showing like nuanced systemic racism, like in terms of them getting a loan, like that was, and then to like explicitly kind of, well, not really explicitly, like she didn't specifically say like this is racially motivated, but like that's clearly what that point of the scene was. So I thought that was like a really powerful way of like setting the tone. So maybe they'll dive into it more, but that scene was also like really well acted and is just like an interior sitting there. But I was like surprised about how well that went off.
Yeah, I think like the racism that the show is tackling, it seems to be they're doing it both overtly and subtly at the same time, which I'm pleasantly surprised about it. Like I didn't really think that they were gonna want to touch it in like that loan scene, as you just mentioned. Like I didn't think they would do that. And I didn't think they would introduce it so immediately. I thought it might, slowly bubble up during the course of the series. But for episode 1, like right after that big fight, Sam Falcon is saying things like, when one group, advances, other groups always, fall back and take the burden.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, at the core of systemic racism. And even that Wakanda line that Bucky says, he found peace in Wakanda, and that's the only time he's found peace. The only, the mythical Black nation that has, all the advanced technology and, is far superior in terms of nationhood compared to the rest of the planet. That's the one place where he's found peace, right? That's the one place where he's not overridden by conflict. And I think that's also saying a lot, and probably speaks to the relationship that's about to, form between him and Falcon to some degree. Thinking about blackness as sort of like a state of being that allows everybody to get past kind of the trauma and the divisiveness that's kind of tearing them apart.
Man, well said.
Yeah, that's why they pay you the big bucks, Brian.
Woo!
That's right. My
That
day rate is
Netflix
high.
money.
He's a contractor now on that 1099 life.
Yo, one little thing that stood out to me, because I watched this episode with my friend Tyler. Like, we sat and I watched about his spot real quick. And one thing I appreciated,
Shout out, friend of the show, Tyler Roy. Shout out.
But one thing that stood out to me, I really appreciate is, I feel like they're making a legitimate attempt to establish that, like, it's kind of hard to put into words, but like, they had little black tropes within the dialogue when Falcon was visiting home that I don't know if it mattered to y'all, but
He
saw
was
it and
literally
I was like, oh.
making plates, dude.
Plates,
when I
bro.
saw that, I was like, this is unreal.
No, but not even that. Y'all didn't catch the line when he started doing it. It was like, oh, I'm just trying to get like you. like that's that
Oh,
entire
yeah,
meme, like just all that. I was like, oh, okay. Like, it felt so authentic because it's like,
Did it as a whole?
What?
I
Yeah,
think
like,
half
As a
the
whole,
writing
'Cause
staff is
that's
black.
that's very specific to you because it's
yeah, like that
specific,
felt like very. Like, you can tell sometimes when you have a bunch of black characters interacting, sometimes you can tell if it's just like, oh, a white person wrote this, or like a
Yeah.
not black person wrote this. And there were just elements of the scene that just felt very just real and authentic. Like, if I went to just visit my sisters and they had a cookout and there was all that, I might roll up and just dap up my brother-in-law and, oh, man, I'm just trying to get like you, big dog, and say hello to my nieces. And, like, that interaction is how I feel like my brother and I would interact with our own family, and there was something about that it didn't feel like they just have a black character for the sake of just a visual diversity quota.
Yeah.
They're actually exploring,
Yeah.
like, kind of, Brian, what you said of blackness as a state of being. It's like, hey, for better or for worse, Falcon, Sam Wilson's a black man, and this is just how he interacts with the world around him. And
Who is writing the show? That's an interesting question.
Probably Saban, I would say.
yeah,
Because
secretly,
the sister, when she left those two kids and they're both wearing glasses and they like run off to sneak some video game time in New Orleans, I was like,
That's Savant.
Little
That's
Savant?
little baby
little
Savant.
secret life, guys. I'm
Yeah.
actually a writer for
Savant is
Disney Plus.
literally writing for Marvel Studios and then comes on a podcast that like 2 people listen to.
You gotta have hobbies, right? Gotta
I
have
do-
passion projects.
I did read that there's a number of black writers on the show, I think.
Okay,
and,
yeah,
and the
that's what
guy
I'm
that was
trying to look
chosen
up.
to be the head writer who wrote all the episodes, I think they brought him in specifically because they knew he would handle that well. I don't know if he's black himself. I think he is, but it sounds like that's kind of the way they want to go. I think what's cool is like Sam so far, right, in the movies in the MCU hasn't necessarily been like a black character. He could have been any race, like he's been very just like a normal, not like ethnic specific kind of character. But it's clearly baked into the sister's experience, right? Like her entire perspective and how she views the world is entirely informed by her race and the way that she's treated inside and outside of her community. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was like a skillful way of introducing it so that we don't get this like whiplash of like, wait, that's not the Sam we've met before, right? Like, oh no, like this is through a different character whose experience is different as both a woman and as both a black woman, in the South. That's different than Sam's experience being in the army and sort of developing accolades and friendships with these other superhero characters.
yeah, and being
It's
a
written. The
celebrity.
episode was written by Malcolm Spellman, who's also a
Yeah.
writer on Empire.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asian Americans show up in this show quite a bit, which is kind of interesting for me.
Wesley Nakajima.
Yeah, but it really felt like, which was kind of neat for someone who's used to seeing Asian Americans be sort of in these fairly stereotypical roles of martial artist or, whatever stereotype you wanna put them in.
Yeah. Do you want to keep going on that line?
Yeah. We'll just stop
Tell us
there.
more.
Yeah.
It's a shovel.
Yeah, but these characters that were Asian in the show didn't have to be Asian. And so that was cool
Yeah.
for me to be like, oh, like in the instance of like we're talking about Sam is not necessarily having to be a black character, right? In the other shows. In this case, it's kind of fun to see Asian Americans be just like the normal everyday person on the street who could have been any race, but in this case happened to be, Asian. Like, someone who's like a tech consultant who, gets killed in a random hotel somewhere in Europe. Like, he didn't have to be Asian.
Yeah.
Mr. Nakajima, the old man on the street, didn't have to be Asian. He could have been, any race.
And I think, like, at the beginning of the MCU, they wouldn't have been Asian. Like, I feel like now they've maybe, like, as after Black Panther, and now when they, like, went into this, like, with specific, like, how race is going to play into it. Like, I wonder if they're now, like, thinking more critically about ways they can kind of, like, make their stories more interesting by, like, bringing in actual, like, representations of diverse cultures.
And I think Rhodes, Don Cheadle's character, when he has that conversation with Sam,
I wasn't expecting that either. That
also,
was so sick.
Beautiful.
That must have cost a lot of money to get Don Cheadle in an
That's clearly
episode.
not the issue, though.
I thought he wasn't going to have any speaking lines, so they get him at a lower rate. But he had a lot of lines. But anyway,
what do you think his day rate is? Is it higher or lower than yours?
We're probably on par. And so he says that thing that like things are changing, and the world is different. It's divisive right now. And I think that's both a nod to what's going on in the MCU and what's going on in the real world. Yeah. And exactly what you're saying, Mike, the way that the MCU is thinking about how it changes, to better meet the new reality of the world that we live in, which is one, like which is acknowledging that it's a diverse place and people have a lot of interesting stories that are worth putting out there.
And it's a better product for it, which is like, just like, again, like, even though like he's a white guy, like Kevin Feige is clearly like realized that like when you allow people to tell stories that are authentic to who they are, or when you like get perspectives that are authentic to people, the show is better off for it. Which is like, I think like that's just been the whole trend of like the MCU in the past like few years, is like if you let people like make things they care about and are passionate about, you're gonna make billions of dollars off of it. So it's like watching this, actually, like this being the first episode of the second show, like WandaVision ended and I was really pumped for the rest of the shows, but now like that the first episode of this hit so hard, it's like I just like I'm so pumped for the future of all of this. I'm so incredibly excited for the rest of the show, but like what's it gonna be like moving forward? Because these are like tiny side characters, and Siobhan said this from day one, is like the best part of these shows is that we're now able to dive in really hard on characters that would have only existed in the shadow of other characters, and we're able to not only like learn more about characters we care about, but now these actors are able to like really flex, and like they're all really good. And like I didn't realize Anthony Mackie, well actually I kind of did from like Black Mirror and that kind of stuff, but that like therapist scene with Bucky was so good. And like he also hit like a comedy note, which he never really hit. Like, I don't think he smiled and like genuinely like laughing smiled in any of these movies before. So
very few reasons to do so.
Fair enough. So it's just like it's so
as
exciting.
a trauma-informed character. Yeah, probably not.
I'm such a shill for the mouse, y'all. Like, and they just bought like a big.
It was terrific.
They just took a big bite out of the NFL too. It's like they cannot miss.
Two things I wanted to point out real quick.
All right, last words.
Yeah, one, we talked about the Don Cheadle scene. I'm curious to see, because that conversation I thought was beautiful. I'm curious to see if they explore like Sam maybe having like his more into his rationale about why he chose to give up the shield. Why you could tell that Rhodey was kind of disappointed that that's what he was gonna do. You know, if there's some like imposter syndrome going on where Sam maybe already feels that he might have been rejected as being the next Captain America, and he kind of knew that from the bounce as like a black man. And I'm curious because I loved Endgame, but the moment he handed him the shield, I'm like, yo, you deserve to be it, but do you think that? But do you know that you deserve it? And
well, that's what makes him deserve it, right?
Yeah, but I'm talking more so like the him with the self-awareness of whether he'd be accepted. They keep talking about symbols. That's clearly going to be a theme in the show.
Yeah.
Does he put himself in a box and imposter syndrome rise as a black man because he feels he wouldn't be accepted as Captain America? And I really hope that, like, I felt that immediately in Endgame, maybe as a black man, but I'm curious to see if they explore that line of thinking more in his process of willing to accept the shield. Other bit, lighter note, y'all saw that the dude who was on that helicopter or the plane, the main guy, he was the guy from Winter Soldier, huh?
No.
Y'all didn't
Oh,
catch
we didn't
that?
catch that.
So
Which
remember the
one?
opening of Winter Soldier? They're raiding that ship. There was like some French-speaking people who were these French terrorists
the
holding
pirates,
and
right?
capping them. And remember when Captain America throws down with the leader? I think his name's Batroc or something. But they throw good hands. He takes the shield up and they fight and Cap.
Oh, I did not pick
gives
that
him the
up.
business. That
That's
was the
sick.
same dude.
That's sick.
Because the guy in real life is an actual martial artist. So that's why you see a prominent French-speaking dude doing a lot of more advanced stunts who doesn't die. So I think that was their way of kind of giving you some power scaling of, Cap threw down with this dude in Winter Soldier and his crew. This is how Sam would do it. That similar grouping scenario with a hostage in the air. So I think it was a good showing of his. It kind of puts the scene in a different context when you compare it to the ship raid from Winter Soldier.
So
Them
now
fighting the same group.
let's segue to something that isn't cleanly narratively driven and really hits its points without dragging on.
Zack Snyder's Justice League dropped also. It is, I mean, the big headline that everybody is probably mostly aware about is that it's a 4-hour plus
4-hour R-rated.
Plus.
R-rated epic something spectacle.
Yeah,
Maybe?
spectacle. Trailer.
Production.
Spectacle.
Yeah, production.
The first thing before we get into the actual content, because it's so long, how did you guys end up, if you even ended up watching all of it, how did you end up watching it? Because I kind of, I tried to sit through the whole thing,
Mistake.
but
Mistake.
I
Such a
ran out of
mistake.
steam about 2.5
Strongly
hours in. Had to take a
disrecommend.
break, and I came back to it later in the afternoon and finished off the last
Dude,
hour and a half.
my
And you're
buddy
on vacation, right?
And I'm on vacation, bro.
My buddy Parker, who doesn't watch superhero movies, watched with his brother, watched all 4 hours in a row, and I was like, my heart hurt for him. I was like, why would you put yourself through that, bro? So it is a movie. It's on Amazon. It's on HBO Max as a movie. But they've broken it up into, I think, 7 or 8 parts plus an epilogue. And in the little timeline, there's little dots to show you where the different parts start. So it seems like they do really want to encourage, not watching it in one sitting, which, you're not going to enjoy it if you watch 4 hours of this. It's not great. But if you watch it and if you slog through that, it's gonna be pretty impossible to tolerate.
I love how they're acknowledging the pain to come. I'm well, you can take
4
this in
hours
doses.
of anything. 4 hours of anything is just like I don't know what I could do for 4 straight hours.
And watching a Zack Snyder movie is not something you want to do for 4 hours straight.
I mean, 2 hours is hard.
is a
sometimes.
lot, dude. Hell yeah.
So I didn't watch the movie. I'm too busy making my
I
money.
think you would hate it. Yeah, he's
But,
he's at 1099 now, but I think you
Yeah,
would hate it.
I did want to share a text that I got from a friend of mine, my friend Alan,
What's up, Alan?
friend of the show,
Friend of the
probably
show?
has never listened to the
Hey.
show.
Oh, well,
still
then he's
calling
not a
him a
friend of the
friend.
show.
Big comic book nerd, all of that. So he messaged us in our group chat. So I've gotten more than halfway through Justice League Snyder Cut, and I'm asking myself, what's the difference between Zack Snyder and Michael Bay? And so two things about this text. So the fact that you got to get through more than halfway.
Yeah, every text you get
that
about
it's
this
a
movie is
slog,
someone acting like they're on a training regimen or something.
Oh
It's
my
I'm
God.
halfway through. I
It's
just
like an
gotta-
ultra marathon. It's like
P90X.
climbing
Yeah.
Kilimanjaro. Come on, isn't this supposed to be entertainment? And
Isn't
then
it supposed to be fun?
right. And then the second point that he's making, what's the difference between Zack Snyder and Michael Bay? And that is power leveling, my friend, or power scaling, as Savan put it. That is exactly where Zack Snyder is. He is in the Michael Bay bin of
Yeah.
DVDs at the supermarket in that red box,
Walmart,
or whatever it is
dollar
that costs
basket.
$4.
Yeah. Oh my
'Cause I don't want
goodness.
it.
Well, can
Um,
this fit on one DVD?
No.
Oh, who knows?
Unbelievable things. I think the takeaway from this movie is not that about the specific movie, and I feel like a lot of people are missing that. It's the fact that this was made and released, and how crazy it is that DC was in such a terrible spot that they messed up this movie, put out a movie that absolutely tanked, and then we're just all right, well, what do we have to lose? And then the response of like the fans just memeing this for years was a 4-hour R-rated superhero movie on HBO. Like, that is why I watched it. I would watch any movie that had that kind of context surrounding it. It's absolutely bonkers that this exists.
How do you think Joss Whedon feels right now?
Probably pretty
Rich.
terrible. Yeah, rich. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, like, yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, do you and that's so funny. And I watched Falcon and Winter Soldier directly after watching Justice League, like,
A little
because
palate cleanser.
yeah, well, it was crazy, but it's like it's the polar opposite. It's like it's not like an Art of Love where like, and the things we're talking about in like Marvel, where it's like authenticity and like empowering the people making these, like the Joss Whedon cut, which I've actually never seen, but I've like read a lot about. Like, that's the polar opposite. That's
It's
like
fine.
That's like
It's just fine.
That's like well, it's like incoherent. And like what I read, I loved reading the differences between that cut and the one we got. And there is no way I can imagine telling the story they wanted to tell for this and then having it not be 4 hours. Like, maybe you can cut it down to like 3:30, and I do understand why they edit movies now, because like there is some, it's just like clearly like they'll have like a shot of like all the superheroes standing, and then that'll like go on way too long. And it's clear that like in a finished movie, they would just pick like a 10-second frame of that. But instead you get a minute of them all just standing really dramatically. So it's also kind of an interesting like way to see like how movies get made and like why you edit movies. 'Cause it can be really a slog. Like, there's one part where Aquaman in the beginning is like walking into the water away from like this Icelandic village he lives in. And the women of the village come out to sing as he's walking in. So normally you'd expect that to be like a 10-second scene of like him walking in
not
the
be
water
there
and
at
then
all.
singing. I kid you not, they did that whole damn song, like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And I was like,
And then the remix.
and I was like, first of all, how slow is this man walking in the water that they have time to like really like, you know, hit the callback on that final verse and outro? And the funny thing is, like, there's a 4-hour cut of Revenge of the Sith that people really want. And I'm like, I don't think you want that after watching this. Like,
I want that.
well, like, here's the thing with this. We need it, like, it's impossible to not relate it to Marvel. And like Wes, you said, that's like a pretty boring take. But going into the Avengers, all the people got their own movies. And this, they had to do the build up for the characters and then actually do the main story. And without building up the characters, there's no reason to care about him. So like Cyborg we were talking about. I love Cyborg in this movie. He's like low-key, like kind of like the center of the whole plot. And there's a lot of buildup, and the same with The Flash. So I don't know how you could make this movie without it being 4 hours, and I don't know why they released it like this. So it's just like, it's really like if Zack Snyder like massages the smooth part of your brain, this is just like a lobotomy of that part of your brain, and just being like look at it.
Okay, I got a question. First of all,
I love this movie on a philosophical level, like, and like that's gonna like
You like
whatever
the idea
question-
of it.
I love that it exists. It's hilarious. It's like chaos. Like watching it, it really feels chaotic.
And Joss Whedon also reshot a lot of it himself too, right? So it's
There
like,
are only
yes,
30
yes.
minutes of the Snyder cut in the original Justice League movie. So he reshot, it's what, a 2-hour movie? He reshot an hour and a half. And they completely reworked the plot.
so whatever he inherited, it probably wasn't in a shape that he knew how to handle it, right? Like
Yeah.
he probably saw it and is like, what the is this?
Yeah,
Like,
can you imagine
what
like
has this
trying-
guy
out
been
of
doing this whole
any
time?
guy trying to follow up, like anything like to get like that handed to you, a 4-hour Zack Snyder Justice League movie. Like, I'm not a director, but I imagine you're not exactly set up for success in this.
So he took. So Joss Whedon took that 4-hour cut and basically only kept 30 minutes of it.
Yeah.
I can't.
So he
So now
keeps-
I feel like I
Yeah.
need to watch this Justice League movie just 'cause I'm like, this is 2 separate movies. Yeah, I love all like I love the Themyscirans, the old gods, the new
yes,
gods.
they're in this. There's
the
like Ares and
Atlanteans,
Hercules
like,
in this.
Saying Dark Side, all that. Like, I love all of that, but I could not give 2 poops about the live action movies. I saw Man of Steel and I vaguely remember what happens, and I
I like
haven't
that
seen
one.
anything else.
Dude, watch this.
I've seen
If you- if-
YouTube clips of Aquaman.
Watch this. If you
Should
like,
I watch this?
Yes.
As a fan of the lore and not a fan of the live
yes,
action.
Yes. I
For
can't
4+
believe you're shaking your
hours.
head. Yes. Don't watch it at once.
I
watch
won't,
it as like a
because-
TV show.
Dude,
But
if I wouldn't watch the movies for 2 hours, I'm definitely not gonna watch this. For 4
no,
hours.
don't watch it as a TV show, but
Yeah.
like 100%. And like
You
there's a
don't need to
lot
watch
of
this.
lore. And then like I wish there was more like at the end of the epilogue and like with I'm not gonna spoil that because there's actually a pretty cool part there. But like I'm like, oh, I want to see more. I'm like interested. Like so
Hard disagree. You
Oh,
do not
man.
need to watch this. alone.
I think you
Okay,
should. I
Mike
think
told
you
me
should.
why I should. Wesley, why should I not watch it? As someone
It's
who
a
likes
mess,
the characters
bro.
in the lore, yeah, but like
Yeah,
Well,
I
it
like
is
the
it
characters.
is a 4 hours R-rated Zack Snyder.
It's
Justice
a
League movie,
mess.
So maybe
a
that's
mess
why
in
you-
what regards? Like what will make it
I don't
not
think
fun
so.
for me to
I don't
watch?
think it's like narratively a mess. I think it's actually a pretty coherent story.
But it's boring.
Like if
Like,
I watch it, what
I'll-
am I
I'll
not going
say
to
this.
enjoy?
Like any conversation that any of the people are having with each other,
Okay.
like every single conversation is like boring AF.
I thought the dialogue
Okay.
was pretty good.
Okay, so this is just a
Name
taste
one
thing between
quote
y'all.
that
That's
where you were
fine.
like, "Oh, that was cool," or like one moment.
How many drinks were you in?
None.
While watching.
Actually, none. Maybe I should have, but like that's a lot of drinking. Like by the end of it, I would have been like, "This is awesome." My favorite one was when they walk in when he introduces all of them to Alfred, and Alfred's great in this movie. Like Jeremy Irons is a great Alfred, but he goes like, "This is
Oh,
Alfred."
Jeremy Irons. Nice.
Yeah, he's really good. But like Bruce walks
He
in
is.
with all the Justice League and goes, "This is Alfred. I work for him." And it was so funny, dude. And it was like and I like Batfleck too. Like I'm talking myself into genuinely liking this movie, not just like ironically enjoying the train wreck of it. But Savon, I would give it.
It was weird that nobody even like reacted to him saying that though.
Yeah,
I was like,
some
what?
of some of like the dot
didn't
like
land.
the ad. Yeah, it was clearly like weird directing. Like he was just so focused on like that one line. Like he
I
didn't
wonder
really
if
tell
Zack
anybody.
Snyder even like communicates with other humans. Like, is he?
Do
just
you know
in
what
his
he
man
looks like?
cave,
Have you ever seen what
masturbating
he
all the
looks
time?
like? I thought he was like a neckbeard. Like this dude's got like tattoo sleeves. Like he looks pretty cool.
Yeah, he looks like a tech bro.
All right, so like I recommend it. Wesley
Yeah,
just
I know.
recommends it. 1 to 10. What do you give it? And we'll get out of it on here.
All right. 3.
3?
Yeah.
Oh my
Damn.
god, that is scathing.
So you're like
Can-
upset that you wish you could get your time back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
6.5. Like,
Absolutely.
6.5. At points, I was thinking like, bro, this is like an 8, and then it like would get back on its bullshit, and I'd be like, 5.
There's no relationship building between any of the heroes. I think that's its biggest
That's
flaw.
also false. I like the little dynamic between Aquaman and the Flash. I think that was cool. I think Batman and Alfred get their relationship fleshed out a
Batman
bit.
and- but
they
the
hint
heroes.
at like and it was
the only
weird.
one is Batman and Aquaman, maybe, but it's just more like an awkward relationship rather than an actual relationship. I don't know. I think we should end our. People go watch it or don't watch it. I don't know. It was.
It's chaos.
I'll
If-
start
if-
it and see how I feel.
If you want a little chaos in your life, watch a 4-hour Zack Snyder R-rated superhero movie.
Well, that doesn't.
All right.
You,
That wraps up our episode of Confidently Wrong. Follow us on all the socials, and by all I mean Twitter and Instagram at confidently_pod. Leave us some reviews. Leave us a comment. Visit our sponsor, lacrosseballpeanut.com and AMC. Don't forget that promo code at Confidently Wrong. Friends, what a great episode.
Later, Nakajima.
Woo!
We out.